the watching shadow. The apartment was silent, but for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant, muffled thrum of traffic somewhere far beyond the walls. Alex had been home for hours, curled on the threadbare sofa with a book he hadn't really read. His eyes traced the black expanse of the living room, settling on the unlit corners that seemed to stretch farther than they should. He thought he heard a soft creak, the kind that comes from floorboards contracting, or maybe from some animal on the roof, but when he turned, nothing stirred. The air was too still. His own breathing sounded loud. Then the shadow moved. Across the far wall, where the lamp had been turned off for hours, something dark swept in a long, smooth line. Not jagged, not broken, like liquid or a hand gliding through thick smoke. Alex froze. The room held its breath with him. "No," he whispered, though to whom he didn't know. The voice sounded wrong, too high-pitched, unfamiliar in his own throat. The shadow halted, then stretched, as if measuring the room, moving with an intelligence that set his stomach twisting. He squinted, willing the dark to resolve into some mundane explanation. The curtain shifting in the breeze, the reflection of passing headlights from the street. But there were no lights, none at all. A chill slipped up his spine. The window was shut, the door locked. He had checked, though now he questioned whether he had really. His memory was fraying, pieces missing like scraps torn from a notebook. He rubbed his eyes. The shadow didn't shift. It just stayed there, smooth and patient. Alex rose slowly, heart hammering, and the carpet creaked beneath his feet, an echo too loud in the stillness. "Hello!" The word bounced off the walls, swallowed by the dark. No reply, only the shadow. He edged closer. The air was colder here, a sharp, wet draft curling around his ankles. He reached out toward the wall and froze. His hand passed through nothing, but the shadow pulsed, expanding slightly, like it had felt him approach. Panic pressed against his chest. His phone lay on the coffee table, screen dark. He fumbled for it, thumbs shaking. The flashlight app sparked on, cutting a swath of pale white across the room. The beam caught the shadow, and it didn't react like light should. There was no distortion, no break, no movement in response. Just the same smooth, black presence hovering, waiting. He backed up, almost tripping over the sofa. I'm awake, right? This isn't a dream." The words were absurd even as he spoke them. Dreams didn't smell of dust and damp plaster, of cold sweat soaking a cotton t-shirt. Dreams didn't leave prints on the wooden floor when he stepped back. A sound, a soft scraping, low and deliberate, came from the kitchen. He hadn't noticed it before. Not a mouse, not plumbing, something else. Intentional. He thought of leaving, running, but his legs felt like lead. Something was anchoring him here. Something wanted him to see. The shadow stretched again. Across the wall it moved, sliding slowly toward the hallway that led to the bedrooms. Too fast to be a normal shadow, too purposeful. Alex's breath caught in his throat, icy fingers clutching at his chest. His eyes darted to the hallway mirror. For a moment, he saw the reflection of himself, pale, wide-eyed, but behind him, a black shape stood in the doorway. Not reflected, not a trick of light. He blinked. The shape was gone. But the hallway was colder now, a draft curling along the baseboards like smoke. The silence pressed in, thick and suffocating. The apartment felt wrong. Familiar rooms stretched farther than memory allowed. The ceiling seemed higher, the corners deeper. His own home was alien. Alex stumbled to the kitchen, desperate to turn on the light. The switch clicked, but the overhead fixture remained dark. Panic boiled in his chest. The shadow didn't flicker with the non-light. It moved toward him, a river of darkness spilling silently along the walls. He tried to speak, to call for help, but his voice failed. His phone screen dimmed. The room seemed to breathe. One moment, the clock ticked normally. The next, time lagged, stretched unnaturally. He remembered sitting on the sofa earlier. No, had he? His mind shivered. He couldn't be sure. Something shifted behind him. He turned. Nothing. Then, from the corner of his eye, movement. A ripple across the wall, smooth and fast, impossible. It pooled in the corner near the couch, then stretched toward him, long and deliberate, curling like fingers in the dark. Alex stumbled backward, falling to his knees. The air was thick, suffocating. A smell like wet stone and old paper filling his nostrils. His flashlight flickered once, twice, then died. The shadow was everywhere, or perhaps nowhere. An intelligence in darkness, moving with patience and curiosity. He clawed at the wall, at the carpet, anywhere. Nothing gave. The shadow responded to his panic, elongating, pulsating, moving closer with a precision that terrified him. The sound, a soft, wet scrape, resonated in his skull. Too close, too intimate. Then he realized the shadow wasn't cast. It wasn't a reflection or absence of light. It wasn't responding to him, it was observing. The thought made his stomach turn. His head throbbed with a memory that wasn't memory. Someone else in this apartment, long ago, facing the same darkness. A déjà vu, sharp and bitter. He should have run, but where? The apartment's edges had changed. The doors weren't where they should be. The windows looked like mirrors now, reflecting only black. And in each reflective surface, he saw it. Not the shadow, but the eyes within. Small, bright pinpricks, set deep in a fluid blackness that didn't belong to any shape he knew. Watching, patient, infinite. He fell backward onto the sofa, curling into himself. The blackness pooled at the doorway, then moved slowly into the room. His limbs refused to obey. Panic roared, but sound itself seemed to vanish, leaving only the cold draft curling around his neck, around his chest, suffocating him with the weight of unseen attention. The room tilted. Time staggered. He felt himself being catalogued, measured, as if the apartment itself were alive, complicit. He wanted to scream, but his voice was a memory now, gone before it formed. And then the shadow paused. Just beyond the edge of the sofa, it pulsed, smooth and infinite. This blackness wasn't a lack of light. It was presence. It waited, not moving, not casting, only observing. Alex understood then with a clarity that made his knees buckle. It wasn't going to leave, and he wasn't meant to. Somewhere behind the blackness, a soft scraping returned, deliberate, patient. The apartment side around him, stretching, folding, reshaping. He blinked. The walls had new angles, the ceiling a new height. Nothing was familiar. He tried to close his eyes. He felt the darkness pressing against his eyelids anyway. It didn't care if he looked or not. It didn't need him to see it. It had been here, waiting, always. And then the whisper came, not through his ears, through his mind. Not words exactly, but understanding. We are here. We have always watched. Alex wanted to move, wanted to fight, but his body would not obey. The blackness pulled closer, encircling him. Cold, smooth, endless. And in that instant he realized it had never been cast. It had never needed light to exist. It was not a shadow. It was him. Or perhaps he had been it all along. And now it was awake. Static lullaby. The baby monitor crackled to life, though there was no baby in the house. I froze mid-step in the dark hallway, the hum of the heater filling the empty space like a living thing. My hand tightened on the coffee mug I hadn't finished, the warmth seeping into my palm but failing to calm the sudden spike of panic. The monitor sat on the kitchen counter, its tiny red light blinking with slow, mechanical patience. I hadn't touched it in months. Ever since I'd moved into the house after the last tenants, a couple who left in a hurry and left it behind like a relic. A soft static hiss spilled from the speaker, then a faint, high-pitched coo, almost like someone breathing too close to a microphone. I leaned forward, squinting through the darkness. The kitchen light was off. I hadn't turned it on. The cooing stopped as abruptly as it began, leaving behind a lingering, tinny vibration that seemed to hum in my skull. "Hello?" I asked, my voice sounding alien in the empty space. Only silence answered, but the monitor's red light pulsed again, a rhythm like a slow heartbeat. I took a cautious step closer. Maybe it was a fault in the device. A leftover signal from the neighbor's baby down the street. I told myself that. I kept telling myself that. The house had been quiet all evening. Outside, the wind shifted the bare trees against the windows, their branches scratching the siding like fingernails. Inside, my footsteps echoed too sharply in the narrow hallways, the wooden floor groaning beneath them. I reached the monitor and picked it up, the speaker warm against my palm. Static. Just static. And then a soft giggle. It wasn't childlike. It was stretched, thin, something between a sigh and a rasp. My chest tightened. I dropped the monitor back onto the counter and backed away. My reflection in the darkened sliding door startled me. My own eyes wide, the skin around them pale in the muted moonlight filtering through the blinds. I tried to shake it off, convinced I was imagining things. Perhaps the stress of moving, the long days alone in this strange, aging house. I grabbed my laptop and checked the signal frequency. Nothing unusual. Nothing should have been coming through at all. I sat on the couch, wrapping my arms around myself, listening. Every creak, every groan of the old house felt amplified in the silence. My mind spun small, rational explanations, rodents in the attic, loose wiring, the wind, but none of them made the monitor's faint giggle make sense. Hours passed, or maybe minutes, I wasn't sure. Time seemed sticky here, as if the house swallowed it whole. Each time I blinked, shadows shifted slightly, just at the edge of my vision. The corners of the room seemed to darken when I looked away, then lighten when I stared directly. I slept fitfully on the couch, but even in the brief lapses of unconsciousness, the monitor hummed. The first thing I heard when I woke was that soft coo again, clearer this time, almost insistent. I bolted upright, clutching the blanket around my shoulders. The monitor's light pulsed steadily, no static, no interference, just the light and the sound. I walked from room to room, empty, every window latched, doors locked. My phone buzzed with a notification, someone attempting to call, but the screen showed an unknown number. When I answered, there was only a whisper. A voice, soft, distant, saying nothing I could understand, yet somehow unmistakably directed at me. "Who's there?" I shouted, more forceful this time, the sound cracking in my throat. Silence. Then, the monitor's voice, faint and warped. "Don't go." I froze. The words were broken, but intelligible. My mind flailed, searching for logical ground. The house was empty. The baby monitor was the only device of its kind. There was no baby. No one had access. My apartment neighbor was hours away. The roads outside were empty. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the kitchen, the monitor in front of me like an accusation. The red light pulsed with the rhythm of a heartbeat or something like it. I started to notice patterns in the static. A coo, a whisper, a pause, a sigh. Sometimes it mimicked my own movements. A scrape of a chair, the clink of a mug, the soft intake of my own breath. By the third night, the sound was no longer just from the monitor. I would pass a hallway and hear the faint echo of a step behind me. Soft, deliberate, fading when I turned my head. I would catch a shadow that didn't match any object, stretching along the walls just out of the corner of my vision. I told myself again and again it was exhaustion, paranoia, the mind filling empty spaces with imagined threat. But then came the scratching. It began softly, high up near the ceiling, tiny nails tapping against the wood. I froze, heart hammering. The sound traced the outline of the hallway as if someone, or something, was pacing just out of reach. The monitor crackled violently, and for a brief second, I swore I heard the cooing followed by a low, rattling laugh, like a throat clearing from far away. I called the police, insisting someone was in the house, though I knew the trembling in my voice made me sound hysterical. They arrived within minutes. 2 officers, flashlights cutting through the dark corners, radios crackling softly. They searched every room, every closet, the attic and basement. Empty. Nothing. No footprints, no forced entry. Not a sign of life beyond me. When they left, reassuring me it was probably wiring or interference, I felt a hollow relief, but only temporary. The house was quieter without them, too quiet, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. I began recording the monitor on my phone. Each night, I cataloged the sounds. Static, coos, whispers. They became increasingly coherent, sometimes repeating the same phrases. Stay, I'm here, don't leave. I played them back during the day, but on playback, the audio sounded like nothing more than garbled interference. Nothing intelligible. Yet my skin crawled when I listened. Sleep became impossible. I started to avoid the hallways at night, sticking to the kitchen and living room, carrying the monitor like a shield. But the sounds followed me, echoed behind me, appearing wherever I looked away. Sometimes I would glance at the monitor, and for the briefest instant, the red light was off. Then a shape, blurry and shifting, reflected in the black screen. I stopped leaving the house. The few times I tried, the static would flare, a high-pitched wail filling the rooms. I couldn't leave. The house wouldn't let me. Then came the day I noticed something. The monitor's coos no longer paused when I was near. They continued, uninterrupted, synchronized with my movements. I realized, with a cold twist of terror, that the sound had been following me before I even heard it, learning, anticipating. The monitor wasn't just a device. It was a conduit, a listener, and I was its subject. I covered every monitor in the house, every reflective surface. I hoped to escape its gaze. But at night, I would hear it, faint but insistent, from places I hadn't placed a device. In the closet, under the floorboards, inside the walls themselves. The coos had become whispers. The whispers had become murmurs. And the murmurs had begun to speak my name. I stopped answering. I stopped moving. I sat in the dark, waiting, trembling, counting the pulses of the red light as if they were the only proof I existed. It was the fourth week that I noticed the most unsettling pattern. Each night, the monitor's voice changed slightly, closer to speech. The words formed sentences that chilled me to the bone. Sentences like, "Do you remember me? Did you forget me? Your turn." I realized then the horrifying truth. The house hadn't been empty when I moved in. Someone or something had been waiting, and the monitor had been keeping track all along, waiting for me to arrive, waiting for me to stay. And then, as if confirming my dread, the static resolved into a single, crystalline phrase that pierced the silence. "I'm the baby." I dropped the monitor, and it rolled across the floor, still speaking in that high, warping voice, as if amused. The red light blinked once, then twice, then nothing. I can't leave. I haven't left. And now I understand. The baby was never a child. It was never a thing to be cared for. It was a voice. It was the house itself. And it has been listening. Always.